Today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026, and today is National Middle Child Day, which means somewhere out there, a middle child is probably explaining that they are not jealous of their siblings. And somewhere else, someone is probably saying, Marcia, 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 because apparently one fictional middle child from a 1960s sitcom became the spokesperson for an entire birth order. But that is actually one of the things I love about history. Sometimes the smallest things become symbols. A phrase, a person, a discovery. Something that starts in one moment and somehow becomes much bigger than anyone expected. Today we'll meet a dinosaur that became one of the most famous fossils ever discovered. Then we'll take a look at an animal that disappeared from the planet before most people realized what was being lost. And later, we'll jump into the world of music and the album that helped turn a heavy metal band into a worldwide phenomenon. Welcome to Wait, That's Random, This Day in History. I'm C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and someone who keeps finding historical stories that sound completely fake until you realize they actually happened. For millions of people, the Tyrannosaurus Rex is the dinosaur, the one everyone recognizes, the giant predator, the symbol of prehistoric life. But one particular T-Rex became famous not just because of what it was, but because of how it was found. In 1990, paleontologist Sue Hendrickson was exploring near Faith, South Dakota, when she noticed something unusual. Small pieces of bone were sticking out of a cliff. What they discovered was extraordinary. A nearly complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton. The fossil would eventually become known as Sue, and Sue was not just another dinosaur discovery. The skeleton was massive, exceptionally preserved, and gave scientists one of the most detailed looks at one of the most famous predators in Earth's history. But the story behind Sue is almost as interesting as the dinosaur itself, because it was not discovered by someone looking for a famous fossil. It was discovered because someone noticed something small, a few pieces of bone, a clue, a reason to stop and look closer. And that happens a lot in history. The discoveries people remember often begin with someone paying attention to something everyone else might have ignored. A strange sound, a small mistake, a question nobody had answered yet. Sometimes history changes because someone else decides, wait, what is that? And from something that survived millions of years, August 12th takes us to something that could not survive at all. The quagga. If you saw a picture of one, you might wonder what made it different from a zebra. And that is part of the reason its story is so fascinating. The quagga looked almost like a combination of two animals. It had the stripe pattern people associate with zebras, but only on the front part of its body. The back half looked much more like a horse. For thousands of years, quaggas lived in southern Africa. But during the 1800s, hunting and human expansion caused their numbers to collapse. Eventually, the last known quagga died in captivity in 1883. An entire animal disappeared. And what makes the story especially interesting is that people did not fully understand what was being lost while it was happening. At the time, extinction was not viewed the way it is today. There was no widespread understanding of how quickly human actions could permanently remove a species from the planet. The quagga became a reminder that something can seem ordinary until suddenly it's gone. And once it's gone, there is no going back. And sometimes something does not become famous because it disappears. It becomes famous because it changes what people expect. That happened in 1991 when Metallica released their self-titled album. The album would eventually become known as simply the Black Album. And it changed the band's place in music history. Before that, Metallica was already a major name in heavy metal. They had a dedicated fan base. They had built a reputation for intense music and demanding performances. But the Black Album reached far beyond the audience that already knew them. The songs became more accessible. The production was cleaner. And suddenly, A band that has built its identity around heavy music became a mainstream phenomenon. The interesting thing is that the success did not come from Metallica becoming something completely different. They still sounded like Metallica, but they found a way to bring more people into their world. And that is often how cultural moments happen. Someone creates something that already has an identity, then finds a way for more people to connect with it. And that brings us to someone whose own career was built around creating a sound that people recognized almost instantly. He was not known for flashy performances. He was not trying to be the loudest person in the room. Instead, he created a style that made a guitar sound completely different. Mark Knopfler was born on August 12, 1949. As the guitarist and songwriter for Dire Straits, Knopfler developed a style that was easy to recognize. His fingerstyle guitar technique gave the band a sound that stood apart from much of the rock music around it. But the song that brought Dire Straits to an even larger audience was not a typical rock anthem. It was Money for Nothing. And the strange thing about the song is the perspective behind it. The song is built around someone watching musicians on television and wondering why they get paid for what they do. A song about people looking at fame from the outside became one of the biggest songs of the MTV era. It was a strange contradiction. A song about television became a television phenomenon. A song about people criticizing rock stars helped make those rock stars even more famous. And behind it all was Knopfler, a musician who never really fit the traditional image of a rock celebrity. He was not chasing the spotlight. He was building a sound. And that is probably why so many people still recognize his playing within seconds. Anyway, I think the next time someone says they can recognize a song from the first few notes, I'll remember that sometimes a person's greatest achievement is not being the loudest voice. It is creating something impossible to confuse with anyone else. And funny enough, that reminds me of a simple saying. Originality is nothing but judicious imitation. If you'd like to hear more of my work, audiobooks, or other projects I've somehow gotten myself involved in, you can find everything over at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and honestly, thank you for spending a little time being curious with me. I'll see you tomorrow.